Good evening and welcome on a Monday night to Generation Movie. Welcome to the Bunny Slippers and Tiny Pickles episode. As we're gonna it's an my name is JW Colwell. I'm joined as always by my good friend and host and partner in crime. Anyway, movie going crimes. Rich Drees, how we doing tonight, Rich?
Doing great, doing great.
That's a nice shirt. I was thinking about this. We're going to talk about it later. We're of course talking about the incredible movie Real Genius tonight. A fantastic movie. Does a character have? Is there any character in the history of movies that has better T-shirts than Chris Knight? I don't know. We're going to see that tonight.
I'm still looking for a Surf Nicaragua T-shirt.
Surf Nicaragua. He wears a lot throughout the lot of the movie. Also, if you like the show, if you like hearing Rich and I discuss classic movies every Monday night, please subscribe to the Escape Network. Yeah, it takes literally 3.5 seconds to subscribe, either to our YouTube channel, or to Facebook, or to Instagram. All the three things on the bottom. Please like and subscribe. Also, thank you so much for paying attention. We're doing clips now, and the clips are doing pretty amazing. So onwards and upwards with regards to that. So we'll see what we have in store for everybody in the next couple weeks. But Joe Ridgely writes, "Good evening, gentlemen. Wait, on time, gentlemen. Yes, we were on time tonight. Yes, I'm feeling we were on time. I'm feeling a little better tonight. I've been out of it for the last couple weeks, actually.
Joe keeps giving us crap about being on time. I say we purposely just pause the show for 5 minutes.
Well, I always live by. I'm sure you live by the same thing because you and I are very kind of suave and debonair. I am always fashionably late. Like I am. I don't want to ever to seem that I'm desperate for attention, which I am. But I don't want to seem like I'm desperate for attention.
Well, I know I call it fashionably late, but it's more like I kind of like get too involved with something and I lose track of time really easily at times. Like if I'm like, oh, I have 5 minutes before I have to leave for work, I will go and do something and look up suddenly and go, oh shit, it's 15 minutes later. And now I am 10 minutes late for work.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, I think it's okay. I know Joe gets a little bit upset about that, but we're working on it. We're always a work in progress.
I love you, Joe.
I of course missed last week. I went to Epic Universe. I had a blast at Epic Universe. My favorite thing in the entire world is they have a Claude Rains accurate Invisible Man that is just spectacular. Here he is. Me meeting him. Now, the cool thing is, Rich, I've seen the Invisible Man a few times, so I was throwing out names. I was throwing out stuff he did in the movie, and he was the actor playing the Invisible Man in Epic Universe was spot on with everything. He was. I mentioned names. I mentioned people. I mentioned somebody who was going to marry in the movie, and he was like, "Oh, have you seen her? She hasn't been around lately." Sweet. So that was my highlight. But I don't want to take too much time away from things tonight. I do want to talk about the future of the show. We are doing starting next week. We will be doing this Mission Impossible. Look at all these movies, Rich. We're going to be looking at Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2,
Look
Mission
at that
Impossible
wide
3.
variety of art and style and composition in those posters.
Yes, it's very interesting. It's as if one person is responsible for the franchise. Yeah, but we're gonna look at all of them as we head into the swan song of Mission Impossible. So we'll be talking about those in the coming weeks. A little bit of a not we're replacing Bond this year, but we're kind of like we're doing some other things in an effort to try to encapsulate the summer movie going season because there's a lot of lot of great movies coming out with a lot of franchises that we haven't covered that we want to cover. So Mission Impossible is the first of that bunch. Let's talk a little box office. Minecraft movie continues to stun, would be a word.
I was shocked by how little that box office drop off was.
52% is nothing. And the fact, the other thing that was kind of shocking, two things. So the 52% drop off, it grossed 78 million in its second week. It's at 278. And that's not worldwide. That's just domestic. It's at 278. It's at 552 worldwide, which is the most money a Jared Hess movie has ever made, by a long shot, and probably the highest grossing film in the history of Jack Black's career, except maybe Jumanji. But he's not, I don't consider him responsible for Jumanji, right? The next edition or whatever the fuck those movies are called. That's more The Rock and the IP, right? But this is Jack Black. This is Jack Black, basically whatever. What else is interesting? 52% drop rate. And they've had to make rules in theaters for this movie because of, like, I don't understand. I was like watching it, and there were all kinds of stories as it started, as it started popping up, that they were like, they had Jack Black walking through one of the theaters telling people not to, hold on to your popcorn. They've there's a New York Post article, which you never trust, but they're hilarious. The headlines: Minecraft obsessed teen boys are destroying movie theaters. It's disgusting. Throwing popcorn buckets.
Spare me the fake bullshit outrage from the Post, okay?
That's why it's funny. That, like,
it's funny in the fact that they're so audacious about being shocked.
Hypocrites. Yes. Just
always remember, the New York Post is the newspaper that once ran the headline, "Headless body found in topless bar." Okay.
But also, like, this made it all the way up to Forbes. Theater chain announces chicken jockey screenings. So, I don't know what the hell's going on. I just know that I'm here to watch the chaos. Basically, a major theater chain has found a creative solution to handling the chicken jockey scene in a Minecraft movie. Basically, this particular scene caused havoc, and some theaters are basically coming up with ways to do it. There was even, like, I think one of the major theater chains came up with a Minecraft, like, thing where it's like a video they play before the movie where it's like, don't fuck around. But 52% is incredible. 552 worldwide, with a domestic box office that's higher than the international. This is crazy times. Although I do want to say the interesting thing there is, it's people have been starved. Like, that's where we're at, and things will fill the gap.
It's certainly a big hit for Warner Brothers, and I think this also is taking some of the heat off of James Gunn and Superman, because that's what I think where Warner's was really kind of pushing all their chips in on. This has to be our big hit.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I would concur with that. I would also concur that Warner Brothers, up until this point, has kind of dropped the ball on their last couple releases. So this one being a huge hit is kind of a welcome reprieve. Their next big challenge, though, Rich, right? I mean, their next challenge comes Friday, right? We have we have a major motion picture opening Friday. It's not challenging, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy either, right? It's not an easy sell. This movie opens Friday. Ryan Coogler, Black Panther, Creed director, Michael B. Jordan, Sinners. A fully fledged horror film from a major studio with a major production budget, which and sparkling reviews.
Yes.
100%, Rich. It's at 100%.
And we don't mean sparkling with vampires in the Twilight
Yes,
way.
we don't mean sparkly vampires. We mean sparkling, like incredible reviews, like
awesome positive reviews.
Yeah, a genre changer, a Coogler's best movie, and he's made some really great movies, Creed and Fruitvale Station and Black Panther, and he's an up and coming director that's basically gotten to do his own thing with this movie. And I don't know that it's an easy sell though, right? It's a gory, violent horror film for Easter weekend, which about 5 years ago people would be losing their goddamn minds, but now it's like there's so much other stuff to worry about than whether or not a vampire movie opens on the week Christ is risen. You know what I mean? Like we're not even fighting about it this year. But
I mean, remember too that Easter weekend has seen some like odd releases over time.
Yes.
Grindhouse opened Easter weekend, which was not a great thing because it didn't do as good a box office as it probably could have and should have. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think it's an interesting thing. There's nothing like we did have the other major releases this weekend. We had 3 major releases. One from A24, Warfare, only grossed $8.3 million. We had Drop from Universal, which only grossed $7.3 million. Got good reviews. It's from a good director, Christopher Landon. And then The Amateur opened to 14.8, which isn't from 20th Century Fox / Disney, which isn't great, but it isn't horrible. You know what I mean? Like, these are not bad openings, considering the climate we're in. But, the only other thing that was close, it wasn't even close, but The King of Kings opened from Angel Studios, which is based on a Charles Dickens version of the Christ story. And, Angel Studios, it's the biggest hit Angel Studios has had since The Sound of Freedom, which should give you a hint at the quality of their films. And whether or not people are paying for other movies based on the tickets they're buying for a movie that, whatever.
I mean, I'm kind of interested in seeing King of Kings based on, the
sound people are, the voice talent is incredible.
Yeah, the voice talent sounds incredible. And everything, but I look at the poster and I'm like, if that is the actual in-film
animation
character design for Jesus, I don't feel that the savior I was brought up to believe as a kid was such a pencil-necked geek, because that is like one really weird thin neck. And as much as I love animation, if I can't connect with a character design, it's all over for me.
And I think that's the key though. Like, it's weird animation because I think we're used to, like, most people are used to a certain type of animation, whether it be Disney, Pixar, a high quality of animation, and whether it be even DreamWorks has a level of animation that you look at. The King of Kings stuff looks garbagey. Is the best. It looks junky.
It's certainly a choice.
It looks direct to video. And
in the best 1990s way possible.
Yeah, it looks like something you would see. We're gonna show a picture in a second. It looks like something you'd see it like in the knockoff bin. You know what I mean? Like,
remember the video label Good Times Video? Like whenever like Disney was going to put out Snow White, one of their classic animated films based on a story that was pretty much public domain. Good Times Video would find like some crappy maybe foreign version. Maybe it was like some domestically produced.
I don't know where it was.
And they just kind of rush it out to hopefully confuse like grandmas going into Kmart to buy something.
Yeah, Kmart. Oh my God, you just hated yourself. Kmart.
Yeah, well, that's where I worked in the 90s. I was a home electronics manager there. So.
Here's the animation.
But yeah, I mean, look at that design. That's kind of awful.
This is a terrible thing to say, but with that neck, he doesn't last 5 minutes on the cross, like, because you got to hold yourself up. Like,
Yeah,
bad.
it's supposed to canonically go 3 hours.
I don't know. It just looks like junky animation, but you know, they're there. They're going up against this week. Look at how dark and fucking amazing this movie looks. Anyway, but yeah,
could you throw the King of Kings poster back up?
Yeah, let's throw it back up. What do you want? What do you want to say?
Because I'm trying to remember where the obnoxious cat with the eyes of Marty Feldman fits into the Passion story.
I think there's something going. I think the way I've seen the trailer, I've not seen the movie, so I can't really comment. But what I would say is, the cat is somehow part of the Dickens family. The cat belongs to the child, and the cat kind of goofily, I guess, walks into different pieces of the story. I don't know. I haven't seen it, man. I look at it and I go, you know what? If I want to watch the King of Kings, I'll watch Jeffrey Hunter. I'll watch the actual.
Yes, that's a great one.
I'll watch the actual King of Kings, which was my dad's favorite Jesus movie. Like, I say that in a weird way, but I don't mean it in a weird way. But because with the history of biblical epics, King of Kings was one of my dad's absolute. Like, he thought it was well done. He thought Jeffrey Hunter was a great Christ. He thought, you know what I mean? He had a penchant for Jeffrey Hunter, though, because Jeffrey Hunter was in The Searchers. So it was like, there's all these things tied to it. But that was the one. The other one that he really loved was The Robe, as we hit into Easter. He loved The Robe, which is basically about the robe that's passed around after Christ is killed on the cross. It's the robe that he's wearing that falls off, and it gets passed around to different people. It's victim mature. It's a really great biblical epic, and you can't really go wrong with like the 10 Commandments if you're apt to watch something for the holiday. I'm sure
I revere the 10 Commandments as a film, but I'm sure if Natasha tuned in, she's already yelling at me to shut up, but because she's heard me complain about this numerous times. I'm sorry, that movie should not have won Best Special Effects over at the Academy Awards over Forbidden Planet. Nope. Forbidden Planet had the better.
I'm just saying the Party of the Red Sea better than Robbie the Robot? Probably not. I'm going to say no. I agree with you. Also, filming
before they cleaned up the film, one of the more recent restorations. When you used to watch it on TV, you could see heavy black matte lines around the water during the parting of the Red Sea. And I mean, it was inventive how they did it, how they achieved that effect and everything. But still, I dare you to find a single matte line in Forbidden Planet, though.
Well, I don't think there is. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I will carry this one in the name of my band director from middle school, John Bender, who was the one who told me one day when I came into class that, hey, Rich, what are you doing Saturday? Nothing. 2:00 on Channel 9. Watch Forbidden Planet. You like Star Trek, you like Star Wars, you will love this movie. And then we had a great conversation about it.
Absolutely.
The next week.
Yeah, Forbidden Planet's a great movie.
Great teacher, and in his memory, I will always fight. We have
magically done what we always done, which is get away from biblical epics and shift to Star Wars, Star Trek, and Forbidden Planet, which is about right. It's about right for us. We should be, because we're getting ready for Andor. Are you ahead of you're ahead on Andor, right? Are you allowed to talk?
I'm not sure I can. Hold on, let me
check your.
Give me a sec. Vamp for me for a moment.
Check your fucking. Do not talk things.
Yeah, hold on.
Well, Rich gets extra time with things before the rest of us do. That's why sometimes I say I hate Rich. I don't actually hate him. I'm just jealous of him, which is fine, because you can also be jealous, which is a form of hatred, but then not actually hate them. That's a very definitive kind of like explanation of adult jealousy, right? You can hate somebody and be jealous of them, but still like have an affinity for them, like I do. But there are times when I hate them. I swear to God, this is going to be the coolest AI clip we have this week. Just me discussing about the boundaries of hatred and what exactly and where jealousy falls in that particular emotion. You know what I'm saying?
Today's the 14th.
Let's just say you've seen Andor. You can't talk.
Thursday after 11 o'clock at night, I can talk about.
Okay, let's just say
whether I may or may not have seen Andor.
But it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan. It's a good time to be a Marvel fan. Daredevil has been spectacular. Like Daredevil's been.
You put me on the spot, Jay.
Really good. I didn't mean to. I'm shifting gears.
Hey, sometimes people have to understand how. It's fun because when stuff like that happens, I kind of get to pull the curtain back a little bit and explain, how some of this entertainment journalism works. Because if you go on,
you can't talk about it. Yeah.
If you go on social media, there's a lot of people who don't understand how the business works, who don't understand how the journalism side of it works, who don't understand anything. They just want to yell and scream about a director who is no way in hell ever coming back to a project that they like.
Oh, okay, Zack Snyder. Anyway, moving on. Okay, we're gonna talk about Real Genius tonight, but I'd be remiss to not talk about Val Kilmer.
Can we talk about one other thing? One other big thing?
Sure. Go ahead.
This past week?
Yeah, what happened?
I don't want to hear anybody ever complaining about too many categories in the Oscars because we're getting our stunt category after years and years and years.
You know what? That is something we should have brought up. It is a great day for stunt people everywhere.
Stunt design. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be stunt coordinators and their teams.
Yes. And I would imagine, I hope now that we get it, that this past year with Conan O'Brien being the host and being able to have all the categories on the show, I hope now that we get it, it doesn't get pushed to the governor's night or some stupid thing where you're like, don't be dumb about this. Be smart and realize that you can actually show all the stuff that a stunt team does to make it incredible.
This coming year, we're going to get the casting category. And then 2 years from, or 3 years from now, or 2 years from then, that's when they're dropping the stunt category in for the 100th Academy Awards. For its centennial, we are getting
it's actually perfect. It's actually perfect.
What's crazy is I've been hearing people complain that, well, how are they going to do this? Yes, Joe. Kane Hodder has been, pushing for this. I've talked to a couple of stunt people, and they were like, "Yeah, that would be awesome."
Do you want to know where I think it gained a lot of? Do you know where I think it gained a lot of stuff? And this is it's a movie you wouldn't actually go, "Oh, that is going to lead." But I think the behind the scenes stuff on the Fall Guy.
It might have helped open eyes. You're right. Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff on the Fall Guy, behind the scenes stuff where they were showing how things are done, and then they had that one crash in the movie that set a world record for the number of tumbles or whatever the hell it was, the number of rolls, barrel rolls for a car in a movie, and they had
I think previously held by Casino Royale.
Yeah, so I think that movie helped out a lot more than we're giving credit for, but I also think it was something that's been coming and should have been coming. And as we progress, there are certain key points where you look at, at stunt performers and how they were used and how they were kind of I go back to Grindhouse. We're talking about Grindhouse earlier, right? That released near Easter. Grindhouse and Zoe Bell kind of also, that she was both an actress and an actor in that movie, gave a great glimpse into the amount of work that they go into that gets put into stunt work, right? Let's see. Joe also says, I've been agreeing with Envy with some of Rich's cool stuff. Yeah, I hate Rich. We hate Rich. It's okay. It's not a full hatred. It's just a jealousy hatred.
I know. That's fine.
An adult jealousy hatred.
The one thing, though, I saw some people complaining online because, it's online. And saying how are people in the Academy supposed to understand how those stunts work? How are they supposed to vote on any of that? And I'm thinking, well, jackasses, This is going to be like every other thing
Other
in the
category.
academy.
Yeah, the
Every
Academy
other category where the category is a
is
part
voted on
of
by people
what
in
ends
the
up the
category.
academy. So like,
Yeah,
and
well, no,
oddly enough, there's about 100 people, stunt people, who are academy members, but they're under the production and technology branch. I would have thought they would have been in SAG or in the acting branch, simply because SAG has a stunt category in the SAG Awards every year, Screen Actors Guild. But I just see it like say it's a visual, like the visual effects, because kind of is a visual effect. All the movies that want to submit for visual effects put together a reel. They say, okay, here was our top guy. Here are all the people who worked on it, and here is a reel showing you what they achieved from whatever they did to the finished product.
Beginning visions to finished product.
Yeah. And then
I think that's
the people in that branch narrow it down to the five, ultimately to the 5 nominees, and then everybody in the academy votes on that. But everybody in the academy also already has access to those things. So
right, and I think as long as it's not something that becomes convoluted, like the documentary film categories, or it's where it's specialized, where it becomes a crazy kind of voting thing where major documentaries don't get nominated, where major stunt teams, where you go, oh, the stunts in that were incredible, how did it not get nominated? And you look up and you're like, oh, as long as it doesn't get convoluted like that, I think that's what always makes the Oscars so special, right? The idea that people are voting on their own categories, and then they're voting in other, like for Best Picture. Everybody votes for Best Picture.
Yeah,
but you vote in your category first. I think
so let me
I think they can get it right.
Let me ask you this: at the 100th Oscars ceremony, who awards the stunt design Academy Award? Who do you have come out and present it? There's 2 answers, I think, and I would love to see them both actually do it.
Okay, go ahead, go. You have an idea. You've put me on the spot. I was asking an Andor question, then now you put me go ahead.
Well, this is me trying to avoid talking about Andor for another 4 days.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Jackie Chan. If you don't have freaking Jackie Chan presenting that award, you're out of your goddamn mind. And second banana to Jackie Chan. Second banana to Jackie Chan is Tom Cruise.
That would be those would be 2 interesting ones. You could also have you could have a director that has specialized in it. So
Tarantino maybe, or David Leitch.
Miller.
David Leitch
Miller.
Would be a good call, but I don't see like John Q. Public knowing who that is. Tarantino would be great. Maybe Zoe Bell come out with him.
Zoe Bell, the director of the John Wick movies, is all Chad Stahelski is all. That's how he got into being a director. He'd be another good one. I think it'd be an interesting
that very first one they want a marquee name.
Yeah, I would. Jackie Chan's not a bad choice. Jackie Chan's a good choice. I was thinking George Miller. George Miller would be a really great choice if he could get up from Australia. Because think about all the things his stunt crews have done in the face of desert. You know what I mean? Like, those movies are fucking toils. You know, like people hanging off fucking
walking stunt and a walking tribute to the idea that you can break every damn bone in your body over the course of your career.
People playing guitar while next to giant fire spits. You know what I mean? Like, that would be. I think you can't go wrong though, as long as we're congratulating these people. So.
No. I'm just actually happy they're being feted now.
Yes.
Well, in 3.
Let's get to our movie tonight. Let's start with. I do want to start with a brief, before we get to production. Let's start with a brief. Just Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer was something special, and you hit upon something when we were talking about it in private, right? The interesting thing about Val Kilmer, and I brought it up on a couple of shows, I brought it up to people I know, nobody has one Val Kilmer movie. Everybody has 2 or 3, like if you said, "Oh, I love him as Iceman," right? Nobody goes crazy. Nobody says anything wrong with that, right? If I love him, he played Iceman when he was older, played Iceman when he was younger. He was a viable option against Tom Cruise in that movie. Some people say I loved Heat, right? Heat's one of the great action movies ever made. His performance is what sets the movie above everything else, right? The movie's great. It has a De Niro and Pacino scene that they never got. We get it in the diner, but his performance in Heat is what makes it special. Some people, like Joe, say Jim Morrison, right? The Doors. If you're a fantasy fan, you say Mad Mardigan from Willow was my favorite. And to be honest, you can't tell me there aren't D&D characters somewhere playing on a table somewhere in the world that aren't Mad Mardigan, right? That aren't designed to be Mad Mardigan. You and I just did Top Secret a couple months ago, months back. He's fantastic in that movie. And then you get, some people go, well, how could you say no to Batman, right? His version of Batman is completely different from Michael Keaton's, but I don't think it's bad. And somebody asked me, like, what do you actually think about Batman Forever? Batman Forever is not a bad movie. It makes terrible decisions with nipple and stuff. But
Kilmer's performance is interesting, and I think there's probably more of it. Well, I know there's more of it that's on the cutting room floor.
The director's cut that they're working on, right? And it's supposed to be a much better performance. But I think the
idea that better. And I've said this before, and I can't remember if I said this here. I think the idea of Jim Carrey as the Riddler trying to take over Gotham City through the use of a blender full of ping pong balls is just a terrible, terrible plot. I'm sorry.
Also, Jim Carrey trying to act with Tommy Lee Jones, and clearly they are not on the same page acting wise. No. But other people would say the last one that I'm going to bring up in this brief little respite into his career, some people say Tombstone. And Tombstone is a big, loud, angry Western that a lot of people love, including me. And he is the best thing in it. Every scene he's in, it's electric. Every line reading, every Frederick fucking Chopin, every I'm Your Huckleberry, every fucking line reading in that movie is worth every time, when you see the movie, you like say it out loud when he's saying it, like, when he kills Johnny Ringo, it's it's brutality and just amazing and just haughty and cool and everything you want about, you want a Western character. And he was talented. And then this movie is at the beginning of his career, and look at him. He's effervescent. He is alive. He is everything you'd want in a lead performance in a comedy about college geniuses. And he runs with it, right? Look at this poster. Meet Chris Knight, the Einstein of the 80s. He can turn lasers into light shows, armchairs into aircraft, high tech into hijinks. When his professor steals his prize invention, he turns revenge into high comedy. That's a lot on a poster in the 80s. That's a lot. And it gives away the entire movie. But what I think is most interesting is you could say, for a lot of people growing up in the 80s and 90s, this movie was everywhere. And you could watch it almost every day on HBO. It was the kind of thing that became ingrained where you just, and over time, you kind of fell in love with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the production is interesting because it has an interesting director and a really good director. Martha Coolidge is, we were talking about her. She's somebody that we wanted to return to because we had talked about Martha Coolidge when we had done Fast Times at Ridgemont High. No, wait, what did we do? No, it wasn't Fast. What was it? What did we do? We did what movie did we do for her?
We did we do Valley Girl?
don't know.
Because I
No,
remember thinking, if
maybe
we
it was
haven't done it, we need to do Valley Girl at
yeah,
some point.
maybe it was just something where we were talking about you and I were talking about Coolidge,
Mhm.
but she's one of the great female directors, like from the 80s, where you just like you look up and you don't realize how great she was. When she's making this movie, when she's preparing for it, right? She goes and she visits all these places. She goes to the CIA. She interviews Caltech students, right? The screenplay, one of the stories that comes up in the production of this movie, Rich, is how much the screenplay is rewritten over and over, and like that they had a tough time getting it right. The level of comedy and the level of intrigue and the level of pranks, and because it's a masquerade movie, right? It's a teen comedy that is actually housing a commentary on stress in college. It's a commentary a little bit on professors using interns and people underneath them to make money, right? It's a commentary on a little bit of a dark commentary on what the CIA might do with rampant, just trying to get eggheads to make stuff for people, right? Um, so the story there is the screenplay was really hard, and you have a bunch of people writing it, right? And you have a
I mean, you've got Neil Israel, who worked on Police Academy and some other stuff that I just had in my head here. Let me double check that. Yeah, and Bachelor Party, which I believe we've discussed way back in our early days.
Fantastic movie, one of the greatest movies ever made.
Pat Proft comes in and does a few passes because he adds a lot. He worked with Zucker Abrams Zucker on the Naked Gun movies, and before that, obviously, Top Secret and Police Squad. He
Before
wrote
it became Naked Gun,
yeah. I believe he was the one who wrote the one about the key shop on Police Squad, which is probably the funniest half hour of television ever. It includes the great dialogue exchange. Who are you and how did you get in here? I'm a locksmith, and I'm a locksmith. Fucking brilliant.
Well, and that, like I said, there's all these people with the story, and there's people that do the script rewrites. You have a rewrite passed through by Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel, who were very hot in the 80s, right? And then you also have Coolidge helping and working with PJ Torgve. I've never heard of this. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where it's an interesting story in that they refined. So they had several passes at this screenplay that when you're watching the movie, Rich, it doesn't look like they did a lot. Like they didn't have to do a lot of writing. It looks like a lot of improv. It looks like a lot of catching lightning.
PJ Torgve was a writer. She had also worked on SCTV, Armed and Dangerous with John Candy, Back to School, Guarding Tess. She was a producer and for a while head writer on WKRP in Cincinnati. So, I
would imagine it's somebody Coolidge was very well enamored.
I mean, my love for WKRP in Cincinnati. So obviously that's
and my love for SCTV. So yeah, that like I said, there is a sensibility to the movie that you get from the screen, from watching the movie, and like the lines and the people and the characters. They put a lot of work into the screenplay, and there's a lot of people that get credit for it, but it's also one of those things where it's like part of when you're looking at that many people working on a script, Rich, although not in this case, right? Sometimes you look at it and go, it's a tug and pull, right? It's we don't know where we're going. We don't know what, like one version of the script is a heavy comedy. One version of the script is more into the espionage of the whole thing. You know what I mean? But this one is just right. And that's one of the things that comes into production. There's funny stories about the auditions. Kilmer's is the most funny audition story. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Kilmer came into audition, and Brian Grazer says, and it's two different versions of the story, by the way. Grazer has a version of the story. Kilmer has a version of the story. Kilmer came in, and he brought candy bars, and he did tricks. But Kilmer said, I didn't do anything. So Chris Knight wasn't a nice person. So I was insulting to Brian Grazer. And he's like, and, you know, he shook Grazer's hand, says, hi, I'm the producer. And Kilmer said to him, I'm sorry, you look like you're 12 years old. I like to work with men.
Now on the event of Kilmer's passing 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now, Grazer came out and talked about the audition again and said that after the audition, he kind of Kilmer kind of like hid out or whatever, was like kind of like hanging out in the office, and somehow managed to be in the elevator when Grazer was going to leave at the end of the day. And he just kind of stood there and was doing that thing with the quarters that we see him do a couple of times in the movie.
Yes. The two hands, two quarters.
And that's what helped him get
quarters. Amazing. It's incredible.
That's what helped him get the part, was that he could do those little things like that.
Yeah. It's little things like that where you just realize that things, like when we do our show, right? And we do it every week. Isn't it amazing the stories that come out from behind the scenes when you're like, just complete, like Alec Guinness didn't like David Lean, and, you know, Val Kilmer may or may not have insulted Brian Grazer before Brian Grazer was Brian Grazer. You know what I mean? Like, it's incredible. So cool that Batman became Blunt Man. Yes, Joe. All true statements. But yeah, production, they also, Martha Coolidge spent a ton of time at Caltech. So the reason the movie looks authentic, they base it on a house at Caltech called Dabney House. And they even had Caltech students as consultants and extras and all those scenes that are so authentic to the college experience, studying for finals, everybody in a room, like with a pillow and like sitting on a chair and just like, somebody freaking out. You know what I mean? Like,
speaking of that scene, specifically the freak out, do you realize who that actor? Oh, he gets a couple of lines here and there through the movie. He's kind of like the extended gang of, around there.
He gets a great line. He gets a great line when they go to the tanning invitational, where Val Kilmer's like, this may be the first time, the only time you get to have sex. And the kid goes, I don't see how. I don't see how. You know
who that is?
I do not know who that is.
Future director of Independence Day, Dean Devlin.
Are you sure that's Dean Devlin?
Yes.
No.
Absolutely.
No, Dean Devlin's the other one. No.
Dean
Devlin's
the one who snaps out.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's not.
Milton.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Then who is he then in there? Because I am.
Dean Devlin is when they go to the tanning event. When they go, $3. Here's a picture. Okay, Dean Devlin, when they go to the tanning invitational, Dean Devlin is standing behind the guy that says, "I don't see how." Hold on, I'll give you a picture. He's the Asian person.
No.
Yes.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, you're right. You know what? I probably should have Googled that before. I always was under the operating thing that it was he's the guy in the red.
I won $3. Hold on. This is Dean Devlin. Hold on.
You take Venmo?
I was gonna bring it up in a second, but you ruined it. No, I'm just fine. This is Dean Devlin. Dean Devlin he's the younger actor that's right next to the guy who has the freak out. The guy who has the freak out. The guy who has the freak out is shit. I'm looking through the cast right now. Hold on. You got to figure out the characters and then go from there. I want to say George. No, not George.
This is exciting television here. Uh,
This is amazing. Actually, this is a funny thing. Anyway, so yeah, Dean Devlin's also in it, but it's not. It wasn't the character Rich thought it was.
Yeah.
But you
But he
know,
is
they
in it, so.
a lot of people in the backgrounds of different things. We're gonna find out who that actor is and have it next week on Mission Impossible.
Shot
But anyway,
myself
we
credibility in the
we will find out who it is, hunt him down. Also, something that has to be talked about production wise, they popped popcorn for 3 consecutive months, Rich, to be able to come up with, you know, they did popcorn and then they had to do a fire retardant on the popcorn so it wouldn't be set on fire. And then, you know, basically they had to make sure the popcorn wouldn't get eaten because it would have poisoned the animals that ate it. And then they, you know, rented a house and placed it all in the house for the finale of the movie. And that's the production story. Production story is mostly about script and rewrites and Coolidge demanding an authenticity that I think you and I would both agree was not present in 80s teen films, right? There's an authentic quality to the teens in Real Genius where the reactions, the way the kids act, the way they deal with the stress of being geniuses is not like other movies from the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Coolidge also directed Valley Girl, which I feel is a very realistic
absolutely.
type, you know, romantic comedy, teen comedy, quasi Romeo and Juliet ripoff. Not that the movie is a ripoff, they're ripping off the basic plot of Romeo and Juliet. And I think that makes it wonderful. We haven't done Valley Girl though, have we? And that seems odd that we've kind of missed it because that's, you know, it's an early Nick Cage performance. It's one we do need to get to, and I look forward to that.
It probably should have been part of. Maybe we'll do Valley Girl and The Last American Virgin. Did we do The Last American Virgin? We did The Last American Virgin.
Did we?
No. Yeah, we did. That's one of our highest rated episodes.
Oh, that's right. We did.
Yeah. That's one of our highest rated episodes. But I would like to do The Last American Virgin with the kids we did Porky's with, the young people that Natasha hangs out with, just because I want to see them crushed and have them driven.
I was going to bring that up actually afterwards.
Yeah, like have them driven before us, like Conan. Anyway, production goes smoothly though. There's no other stories like about people fighting. Everybody seems to be in good spirits. Kilmer's at the top of his game. He has the great story with Razor. God, what were we gonna say?
To add on to the realism of not just the characters, but every single laser, with the exception of the last one that's, you know, fired from the plane, is a real laser that we see. They're actual real lasers. Yeah. They were kind of dangerous, what they were doing at the time, but I think it absolutely works and lends a certain verisimilitude to it. If they were all like Star Wars lasers or something like that, very obvious optical effects, no matter how well they would have been done, they still would have looked like optical effects. Yeah, and I think it would have detracted from the movie.
They actually had if you watch the credits for the movie, there's an incredible amount of actual laser companies that were designing like the Tanning Invitational lights or the lights that bounce around the campus. But we'll get to one of the more interesting legacy things that this movie actually inspires as well, that has to do with lasers. So let's talk about box office. It was not an expensive movie to make. Let's start there. Budget's $8 million. It grosses $13 million North American. And it you know, so it opens. It only plays in about 990 theaters at any point in its run. That's the high point. It does about 2.5 million opening weekend, so it gets almost a third of its budget back in the first weekend. But it's not a huge success. It doesn't become a huge success until video, right? And the inflated adjusted domestic box office for this movie would be about 41 million, which would put it on par with recent movies like Mickey 17, or you know what I mean? Like it's in the middle of these movies. But what I'm telling you is the box office doesn't tell the story on this movie because it didn't play in a lot of theaters and it didn't get out to the masses until it hit VHS.
The savior of many an 80s movie.
Well, and it has that same quality to it of even like, you know, people don't realize that something like Austin Powers wasn't a hit in theaters. Grossed about $40 million. And then when it got to video that fall, college campuses where you couldn't go to a campus party at the University of Scranton, where I went, without Austin Powers playing in the background of the parties. You know what I mean? And I think this is one of those movies like that. This is also one of those movies.
Have I told you my going to see Austin Powers International Man of Mysteries in a theater story?
No, you haven't.
For whatever reason, I couldn't get to it like the weekend it opened, so I went like a Tuesday or Wednesday evening, and it was like me and two kids who were sitting behind me, like a couple of rows in the theater, and that was it.
Like,
and in the beginning, when his phone rings, and it's the phone ring from the Flint movies with James Coburn.
Yeah,
I laughed, and I could hear the two kids sitting behind me going, "Why is he laughing at a phone ringing?" They didn't get it at all, and I was just like, "Oh, you poor sweet summer children! Oh,
you poor sweet.
You are not going to get." You are not going to get much of this movie if this is an indication
you poor sweet non-educated film children.
Yes.
That happens to me all the time with like weird things I laugh at. Again, there was a joke in what movie was it? There was a joke in a kids movie recently where me and the guy were the only. There was me and a 70-year-old guy next to my left that were the only two people laughing, and it was like. It was a weird joke, and that's a great thing about movies, though. They make screen bedfellows. But the box office isn't the story here. The story is that this movie achieves cult status without being a hit at the box office, which is a rare thing indeed, right? Playing on HBO, playing on TNT over the years, like all these different things add up, and it leads to one of Val Kilmer's best movies. Critical response then and now. You know, we use Rotten Tomatoes to do a quick kind of like a gloss over to give us an idea. And the interesting thing is, this is one of the best reviewed teen movies from the 80s, right? That like teen movies got prevalent in the 80s and they got stupid and they got hit a lot. But if you look at Rotten Tomatoes for this movie, it's 77 on the tomato meter with 35 reviews. It's at 83% with over 25,000 reviews. So it is definitely a cult film that has found its audience and found its place. And you know, when you start going through the older reviews, right? Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars, saying it contains many pleasures, but one of the best is its conviction the American campus contains life as we know it, which I think is one of the more interesting things. And that's when you rewatch it, Rich. One of the things that I think I love about the movie the more I watch it. Performances are great. Val Kilmer is great. Gabe Jarret as Mitch is great. And William Atherton is a great foil, right?
William Atherton. This is like his triumvirate
Ghostbusters, Die Hard,
super dickhead bad guys roles.
Arrogant bad guys. Arrogant, scummy, rich, bad people, right? He's
deliciously scuzzy that you just can't. You're just like, I'm gonna punch the movie theater screen in the face because I hate this guy, and he's wonderful at it. I'm sure
he would be in the current administration's cabinet. Is every William Atherton role. And so but it's a really good performance. He's very bad. He's an evil character. Yeah. Jerry Hathaway is not good at all. He's incredibly mean the first time we see him. Like he goes to Mitch's science fair, and he's a dick at the science fair. Like he's
Mhm.
mean to an old lady.
To his public.
He's mean to his Mitch's parents, and then Mitch apologizes to him for his parents, and it's like he's just evil. The performances are great, but what I think sets it apart is the sheer volume of pressure on kids when they go to college is what I think.
But
What I
I don't
rewatch.
want to. I don't want to move off performances though without mentioning a few people here in the cast. Like for example, Deborah Foreman. Again, she was the star just a year or two earlier of Valley Girl. So she didn't have a big part here, but this was Martha Coolidge just bringing her forward to do this. And I think she's wonderful, and I wish she had had a bigger career. Her career kind of fell into like some low budget cheapy horror stuff after she did My Chauffeur in '86, and was kind of a bum. Playing Laszlo, John Drees. I mean, the guy is an amazing chameleon of a character actor.
Most people would know him as the Wolfman's Got Nards,
or Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. He's also in Get Shorty. He was on Martin. He was on Lost.
He's a fantastic actor. It's a great performance. Another one that deserves. We're talking about them. Another one that deserves it. Michelle Mayrank as Jordan.
I defy anybody roughly my age, male or female, to not have watched this movie when it came out in its day and looked at her hyperactive manic. She's the prototype of a manic pixie dream girl almost, with that Louisa Brooks bob and just like this whole like very air of innocence about her, and just like not have an immediate crush on her. She's just so adorable here.
Well, and actually the interesting thing is the performance is probably, and we don't talk about this enough about 80s movies, but if you're talking about somebody that's on the spectrum, right, that is now prevalent in our world, the character she's playing, the manic pixie girl that you're talking about, is probably on the spectrum. She doesn't know anything about boundaries. She doesn't understand verbal cues. There's a whole thing to her performance that I'm sure an entire generation of people, if they ever see it, will be like, that's me with my ADHD, or that's me with my, on the spectrum.
And again, she was also in Valley Girl and brought forward, to this project by Coolidge. Unfortunately, she's not an actress anymore, but she does run an acting school in Vancouver.
Robert Prescott also deserves some praise. He plays Kent. Kent is another comedic foil for Mitch and Chris Knight. And Kent gets the brunt of the pranks. They put a microphone chip in his head. They put his car in his room. But he's a perfect foil. He's that's one thing. Like, I think the thing that the movie, for me, that rewatching it, the movie is really great at is the loneliness and the amount of pressure that you have when you go to college, right? The idea that when you're there, you miss your family, you want to go home, things happen to you where you're not super happy. Like, there's a whole sequence where Mitch gets taped, calling home and saying, I want to come home. I'm not cut out for this. And Kent tapes it and plays it and just the look on his face. And then, of course, they get back at Kent. You know what I mean? And that's what the movie has a great heart and spirit to it.
I will say Kent is mostly kind of like the secondary comic villain foil. They make him kind of ridiculous. But there's one moment where I feel kind of like humanizes Kent and kind of explains how he is there as another one of these genius types. It's roughly in the beginning where Ick has frozen the dorm room floor and turned it into the Winter Carnival.
We were going to make you king of the Winter Carnival. Really? No.
There's a moment though where Ick is explaining it, and And they cut to Kent, and Kent is something like, "What? Really? How?" or something like that. And he's just for a moment shedded his dickishness exterior to reveal like, "Ooh, that sounds really cool. Let me know. Tell me more." He whatever this other big facade is that he has about being one of Jerry's favorites, but not
Yes.
really.
Yes.
And all that
Jerry's
other stuff
lacking.
all the way for that fraction of a moment. And I'm the last two times I've watched this movie, which was like, today and about 6-7 months ago, I think. And both times I kind of like look at that moment and I'm like, wow, that's really interesting that he is he's suddenly like I think we see a little bit
The
more of
facade
his
comes
core.
down. He
Yeah.
has another one in the movie. He has another one when they, at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but they fill Jerry's house with popcorn, and Kent goes there because they tell him to go look at it, but he goes in and he shouldn't go in. But there's a moment when they're picking him up from the popcorn, and he kind of puts his hand around Val Kilmer, and he puts his hand on Mitch's face like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you saved me," not realizing they put a microchip
Yeah.
in his head. But yeah,
Not realizing the amount of abuse he's been subject to by them.
they know he's been jerking off and they caught him. Like it's just stop playing with yourself, Kent. But this movie is like it is God.
Yeah.
It's eminently quotable. Like it's got all these great moments. Kilmer is his charisma, in the immortal words of Spinal Tap, is an 11. Right? He is nothing but charisma, and to the point where he is annoying. Right? He's because he gets away with everything, and Mitch doesn't get away with everything. And I think, but it's such a great movie. It's about pals and about picking your friend up and making sure everybody's okay, and also about not letting the guy that's taking advantage of everything get away with it. Right? This is one of the movies from the '80s, and the '80s were great for it. It has an amazing abundance of joy and humor that comes across from sticking it to the bad guy. Right? It's in the same mold of great '80s movies, and it's one of the movies. It brings imminent amounts of joy and pleasure. It's just one of those movies that I love unconditionally. Like I don't care about problems. I don't care if you come to me and go, yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not super funny. Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care. The charisma, the humor, the performances from all the kids in the movie. Coolidge's direction. The script kind of branches out into different ways. Like there's a whole thing with a secondary character named Laszlo Hallifeld, where it's just a fascinating, he's somebody that basically broke his brain and ended up out of college, and he's living in the, he's like the phantom of the college, and but he's a really nice character, and he figures everything out for them and helps them when they need help. You know what I mean? But it also has snide. It has such a snide wonderfulness to it. Like I was, what scene I really laughed at today? Like I love the little Pickles speech. Ever wake up on top of a mound of naked women throwing little pickles at you? I love that. But there's a scene that there's a moment that comes after it where he's walking in, and Mitch is like, I saw somebody in my closet, and he's like, oh, you saw him too? And then he's like, yeah, I want to know what he's doing in our closet. He's like, well, what are you doing in your closet? I'm just getting my clothes. Well, he's not getting your clothes. 20 points higher than me, and you can't even tell that a big guy like that's not going to fit in your clothes. Like it's got a slideness to it that is super endearing, like and quick, the kind of quick you want to be in real life. You know what I mean? Like
there's the exchange of, yeah, I want to see more of you around the lab. Okay, I'll gain weight.
Okay, I'll gain weight. There's not a moment where you're not on.
I swear I'll bet $3 that Pat Proft wrote that because it feels like such an airplane line.
Yes, really. I want to see more of you around the lab. I'll gain weight.
Yes,
but that's the thing. The thing about this movie that makes it great is the deliveries are fast. Everything's fast. But it doesn't stop. Like it's very endearing, and I love all the characters, and I love everybody. Like the nuanced performances between Gabe, Jarret as Mitch, and Michelle Mayrank, their little love affair is very cute and adorable. Like, there's a great line near the end of the movie where he's like, "Are you gonna take me home to meet your parents?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Why, are you embarrassed of me?" And he's like, "No, I'm embarrassed of them." Like, it's endearing and wonderful, and all the characters work together. And then it becomes this. There's another piece of it, Rich, where it amps up because they're dealing with the military and they're dealing with stealing their inventions, and so it has a little bit of an Ocean's 11 vibe, right? There's a little bit of it.
Here's what I was thinking about as I was watching it. We have the first two acts of the movie are, people goofing around, having a good time, playing pranks on each other and stuff like that, while sort of trying to achieve a goal. They achieve the goal at the end of the second act, and then they realize have to
achievable
somehow
goal is a nightmare.
Yeah, fix the problem caused by them achieving their goal through the third act,
making sure the goal doesn't get out.
That's kind of the same rough plot structure of Stripes.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. TriStar in Columbia, it absolutely is. And the thing about it is, it's how do I say this? We don't get comedies like this anymore.
No,
right? We don't get comedies like this anymore where they're big and they're focused on the characters, and then they there's things going on for the entire movie where you're following these characters and hoping they succeed. We just don't get them anymore. They're very 80s centric. You know what I mean? Even the comedies that came out after the 90s, right? Like The Hangovers and all these other movies that came out. The comedies, they were endearing, but they're never about a bunch of people trying to get together and stop something or fix something or work together. Like, every bit about this movie is about people coming together. It's well shot. It's well acted. Like, Kilmer's great. Gabe Jarret as Mitch is great. All the bit players are fantastic, especially Atherton. Atherton is like, I would spit on the ground he was walking for the and to think that he's had three indelible characters in 80s movies where you just like, I fucking hate that guy so much, right? It is a skill.
He has to have stories about walking down the streets in some city and having people just like boo him or throw shit at him, or
I would imagine it could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse. Like, I could see him calling Mr. Pecker. Like, I could see all kinds of things. But Hathaway, of the three, Walter Peck, the reporter from Die Hard, and Jerry Hathaway, I say this with all due relevance. Jerry Hathaway is the worst of the three. He is a terrible human being. He is using his kids. He is spending the money that he's stealing from the government to buy a new house and do renovations. He is a terrible human being in every conceivable way.
He has no moral qualms about the weapon.
No moral qualms about you.
He is in it strictly for money. And you're right. I mean, the news reporter in Die Hard is an ass, but he's an ass because he's pushy about his job.
Right.
Dare say he's probably good at his job. Walter Peck, same thing. He has to be pushy about his job. Because he feels passionate about maintaining these rules.
Yes, he comes up against our heroes, but he's probably a decent person. This guy is not.
Understand their motivation. Here, he's just a piece of shit.
He's a terrible human being, and he's absolute. It's the absolute worst of the triumvirate of the William Atherton heels from the 80s. It's the absolute worst of the three. He is a terrible person. Like, the way he treats Kent, even though Kent wants to be treated that way, the way he kind of just like, the way he lords over Chris about whether or not he's going to get a job, the way he immediately steals both things that he has Chris and Kent working on in the dead of night. Like, he is just a bad man. And whatever happens, whatever he ends up in, deserved.
I dare say he put Kent somewhat in charge because he knew he could run roughshod over Kent.
Okay,
He knew
yeah.
he could treat Kent like shit, because Kent, is very much.
Kent just
He
wants the darling.
probably comes from a very similar background to like what we see with Mitch, and probably the same thing that Chris went through. That they're just, no one understands them, and Kent just needed some kind of like approval or some acceptance, and that's why he was like, so it was like, oh, Jerry's gonna treat me like shit. I don't care because he's treating me like shit.
As long as I get the Darlington job, right?
You like shit.
As long as I get the Darlington job. Also, by the way, did you ever notice? I'm sure it wasn't the first time I noticed it today, but when they do Jerry Hathaway's Everything, which is a show he does on PBS, did you see it's brought to you by Darlington Consumer Electronics?
Yeah.
Or Darlington. And that's the job that Chris and Kent are consistently fighting about, trying to get.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. I love that it got great reviews. At the time, I love that, that Roger Ebert was in on it, and the other one that was really great, this was one of my favorite reviews. It's from an unnamed reviewer, but it's producer Brian Grazer created a feel-good picture, and Martha Coolidge turned in the summer's best, and she didn't cheat to do it. There's heart in the kookiness. Real genius has real people, real comedy, and real fun. That's about sums it up. It's a great movie. And it's just one of those movies where it will, if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it, because it's the kind of movie that you'll understand the amount and level of charisma that Val Kilmer has. And then you realize with the other performances throughout his career, he turns it on and up depending on what the character needs. This is full 11.
And this part could have come off as very obnoxious. But I think what he does here that's interesting is he's Mitch's big brother, really, in this movie.
Yes.
He kind of comes off as, very protective, like especially at the end after Jerry absconds with the laser, and he goes, "Oh, Mitch, it's so easy to lie to you.
You're so naive. I understand what this world is."
Yeah. And you can hear the heartbreak, that not that he's feeling bad about having to tell Mitch this. He feels bad because he didn't protect Mitch from
he did let Mitch down. And it's a really cool, it's a great movie. It's legacy and franchise viability. Now you have a particular franchise viability you want to talk about first, right? Because you have a terrible.
Well, I think we kind of did talk about the legacy here a little bit, but
yeah.
Back, and I think I alluded to this 2 weeks ago. Back in 2014, when there was the Sony hack. Holy crap! 11 years ago now.
Yep.
One of the development documents that kind of floated to the surface was a one-page treatment for a possible. It was like a pitch or whatever for a Real Genius TV series. However, rather than set it at a college and watch them get into wacky college hijinks all the time, it was actually set at a research company, postgraduate, and Mitch and Chris were getting into hijinks there. I know it was a short treatment. I didn't have time to go back and reread it because it's somewhere on a hard drive. I had to go look for it. But I just remember reading it going, this is not good. And it felt like on a certain level, the idea of taking it off of a college campus
defeated the purpose.
Kind of betrayed some of the themes of the original.
Right. And just so we're clear, the people producing this one were Sony Television, Happy Madison Productions, and 3 Arts Entertainment. Because apparently one of the legacy things is that it's apparently one of Adam Sandler's favorite movies. He loves this movie. And I'm like, I read that today and went, how? How is it one of your favorite movies, man? I guess it could be. But
you can like good stuff and still turn out garbage.
Still turn out complete trash. Yeah, it never got a sequel, but I think one of the things, there's a kookiness, like one of my legacy points would be that there's a kookiness to the Chris Knight performance that is abundantly clear that it is part of this performance.
Mm.
His Batman and his Bruce Wayne are very, like, his Batman's a little goofy. His Batman's a little Chris Knight, right? The other thing that I thought was really interesting, this movie produces some of the more interesting scientific accuracy Mythbusters episodes. So there's an episode of Mythbusters where they do Car versus Rain. It was broadcast June 17th, 2009. They come up with a concept of whether or not Dr. Hathaway's house could be laser pop popcorn, if it was possible. So they used the 10-watt laser to pop a single kernel of corn wrapped in aluminum foil, showing that popping corn is possible with the laser. Then they tested the scaled-down model of a house. Popcorn was popped through induction heating because a sufficiently large laser was not available, of course, the 5-gigawatt laser. The result was that the popcorn is unable to expand sufficiently to break glass, much like Race Through an Open Door and Move the House off its foundation. Instead, it ceased to expand and simply charred into its shell. So it's one of those things where this movie produced so many concepts of whether a 5-megawatt laser was possible. It was also in, like, they did a study on it in TechCrunch magazine. They did a video and everything, and then they also did a video with Real Genius consultant Martin Gunderson, who was one of the laser guys. He also played the math professor that disappears midway through the movie and only has a box playing his entire thing. That basically he proposed that the laser could be built, but it was probably past the points of possible thing. I think the idea that the science in this movie is so meticulously crafted that there were Mythbusters episodes and also actual people writing papers on it shows me that movie hit where it was supposed to hit. The other interesting legacy that has to be talked about is some of the people from this movie don't appear other places, right? Like you were saying earlier, the people that are great performances in the movie, because you were talking about Deborah Foreman. Deborah Foreman, by the way, gives the single greatest line in the movie. Can you hammer a board with your penis? Which is one of the great lines in the movie, and it sticks the landing, and he's like, "Ooh, good girl, yeah, smart girl, quick," and so. But they never, like, a lot of the people never, like Michelle Mayerink doesn't come out of it. Atherton obviously does. He actually, some would say, he plays the villain so well that he actually gets other roles because of it. I mean, this is after Ghostbusters, but before Die Hard, so he's still, like, he's bumping around. And then Gabe Jarret never really, he does some things, but he doesn't do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And theoretically, he could have been somebody that could have done big things, right?
Yes.
But then he also got in a lot of trouble too. So, sad state of affairs with the cast. You know what I mean? But wrapping it up, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know where I found it, but when I found it, once I did, I watched it all the time. And rewatching it today, it flows. It's an hour and 45 minutes. It's a little bit longer than most comedies, right?
It cooks though. It cooks right along.
It moves very well. It has a great pace to it. It's one of the better 80s teen movies because of the sheer amount of heart that's involved.
It's eminently rewatchable. It's eminently quotable.
Yes. And you root for them. You root for both Gabe and Chris.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, I mean, I absolutely appreciate the career path that Kilmer went on from here, but I do sort of wish he had gotten like a few more comedy roles early on, because between this and Top Secret, I think I would have been happy seeing another 2 or 3 funny movies from him before he starts doing serious.
that is a valid point about his legacy. It's for whatever reason he didn't get comedies thrown at him until late. Like he got Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and everything late. You know what I mean? But that's an interesting part of his legacy. But I think it's one of those things that's like, what could have been? You're telling me we couldn't have gotten Val Kilmer in all the movies that Matthew McConaughey starred in, like the romantic comedies? We couldn't have gotten Val Kilmer. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying.
I wonder what a romantic comedy with him would have been, and I bet it would have been damned special.
Would have been amazing.
Yeah,
and he's going to be missed. Okay, where can people find your stuff, Rich Drees?
Okay, all of my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. We also have a Facebook page where we post whenever we have new stuff coming up on the site, as well as all sorts of fun little social media exclusives about film history, born and died on this day, things like that. I do 2 other podcasts. One is with the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle. That's called Film Scribes. We haven't done an episode in a couple of weeks, and since I'm the producer of the show, I got to get on the stick and try to corral some people to record something new. How could you? I know. And the other podcast I do with my bestest of friends, Natasha Bogutsky. That's called The Big Picture Podcast. You can find a link to that at bigpicturepod.com. And we will have an episode dropping this week, which should have dropped last week, but I ran out of time to get it finished, edited. So
okay, so you can find
and I can be found on socials, on Twitter or on Blue Sky at FilmBuffRich.
I'm JW the Movie Guy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, all those places, and Instagram. You can find us there. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for all your live movie show needs. We're here every Monday. Next week, we begin our Mission Impossible. It's a mission. We've chosen to accept it, and we're going to do all the Mission Impossible movies. Next week, we will get the incredible and amazing. Well, it's a really good opener. First Mission Impossible, directed by Brian De Palma. And we will see everybody next week. Also, coming up this week, we have Loud Nerdy coming up on Tuesday night with me and Kyle and Jerry. And then also this week we have Gabe, who has, great guest Lauren Alenia, who's a cosplay actress and a voiceover actress. She'll be on Gabe's show on Wednesday. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see everybody next week. Mission Impossible. Dun 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 dun. Dun. Anyway, we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Enjoy the cinemas.